Oh, there are some people. Even I can't mute.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so let's get started. Welcome to our weekday text gathering. Today is day 154 in the Circles reading calendar, and we have a cameo. Today we are studying Cameo 21. You do not realize how much you hate each other. If you haven't muted yourself, can you mute yourself, everyone?
Emily, you might want to explain. I'm sure there are people on the call who don't have the CE.
Okay. Okay. If you do, you think people don't have the CE?
I'll bet there are people.
Okay, well, if you don't have the CE, or if you do have the CE and you're thinking, what on earth is a cameo? There are a series of 33 essays in the back of the complete edition of A Course in Miracles. All of them were written by Robert, and they are beautiful, and they apply Course wisdom to Helen and Bill and other events and related to their life, and so it's a practical example of how to apply Course wisdom. And in this cameo is particularly interesting because it's a personal message that came to Helen in 1966, so about a year after the scribing of the Course began, and it came right around the time that she scribed the section that we were studying yesterday, Fear is a Call for Love. And as you may remember, that section focused on attack, and in this message Jesus is speaking of the ways in which Helen and Bill attack each other. And this material is so incredible. Jesus is a remarkable therapist, and I just hope that you all find real value in the discussion today. It is incredibly relevant to what happens in our own homes with the people who are closest to us. And I think it's also highly relevant to what's going on with the unrest happening in the world right now. And speaking of, I think it's also very important to mention that here at the Circle, we will be issuing a statement on the protests and addressing the pain and the suffering that are being felt right now by so many. We sincerely believe that it is not out of accord with the Course to take a stand on social issues. And I think that's especially true if the ground that you're standing on is based in Course principles of equality and unconditional love. So look for that soon. And if you haven't received your copy of A Better Way that came out yesterday, it was emailed in our Circle News newsletter. Please let us know. Send an email to info@circleofa.org and we will be sure to get that to you. It's over 40 pages. Outlining the Circle's vision for the next few years. And as I've mentioned here so many times, Robert's article on the Circle's approach to A Course in Miracles. And I really do hope that you will take the time to read that. So many of you are here every day, which means you're very invested in the Course and you're very invested in the Circle. And so definitely want you to know where we're going. And in that article, in my article, I not only share where we're going, but I share an invitation to join us by either joining Course Companions, becoming a volunteer, becoming a contributor to the Circle. And so we can't achieve that big vision that I outlined without your help. So I hope that that we can count on you. And with that, I will start our prayer. So if you would join me in closing your eyes and taking a deep breath. And bowing your head. Dear God, thank you for the opportunity to come together today as loving friends and mighty companions on this remarkable path of light. We surrender this gathering to you, and we ask that it serve your purposes and be blessed by you. May we hear your call today and every day from deep within our mind where we know that you abide. Please take a moment to extend your love and blessing to everyone on this call. Say to them, God speaks to me through you. You stand in the light as His perfect creation. Now take a moment to receive the love and blessing from everyone who is loving and blessing you right now. Say to yourself, God speaks through me. I stand in the light as His perfect creation. Remembering that every brother you meet becomes a witness for Christ or for the ego, depending on what you perceive in him. And remembering that we can be a source of miracles and healing, and this world can change through us. And so it is. Amen.
Amen. Okay, well, if yesterday's gathering was kind of hard, I want to mention a couple things. One is that I'm going to do a class tomorrow, and it's a Course Companions class. I think probably most of us are in Course Companions. For those of you who are, we have a text class on Wednesday afternoons, or my Wednesday afternoon, I guess Wednesday morning for most people. And I'm going to cover the whole call for love, call for help concept really clearly, which I don't think I did yesterday. So there's that. I'm hoping it will make it clear in all of our minds and we'll be able to connect with it more easily. The other thing I wanted to say is that if the idea from yesterday's class that our attacks are not these well-intentioned quests for love was hard, to the Cameo material we're looking at today is going to be, I think, harder.
Brutal.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into that. Okay. Okay. So Cameo 21 is you do not realize how much you hate each other. And this, as Emily said, is direct guidance to Helen and Bill's relationship. It would have been great if it was suitable to go in the course itself, but it's really not. It's just so specifically directed at conditions and a current phase within their relationship. It would just take too much change to put it in the course itself, but it's priceless stuff. And I think it actually provides the context for tomorrow's text section. So without this Cameo, I don't think tomorrow's section is all that clear. And it just occurred to me today that there is a direct reference to this in chapter 13. That's not footnoted in the CE, but it probably should be footnoted because it directly refers. The first line of chapter 13, section 3 says, "You may wonder why it is so crucial for you to look upon your hatred and recognize its full extent." Well, that's a reference to this Cameo. Okay, or the material in the Cameo. So let's dive in. The situation is this. It's about Helen and Bill's relationship, but it does have application beyond that. The situation is that two people are in a relationship in which they love each other, but they also hate and fear each other. The love draws them toward each other, and the hate and fear make them want to get rid of each other. And here's how this guidance that we feature in the Cameo starts out. You have no idea of the intensity of your wish to get rid of each other. Now, we probably have been in relationships where we had some idea of the intensity of that wish. This does not mean that you are not strongly impelled toward each other, but it does mean that love is not your only emotion. So he's saying, yeah, there is love there, which draws you toward each other, okay? But it's not the only thing going on. I suspect most of us can relate. Most of us have been in relationships like this. I mean, they should work these lines into the marriage vows, I think. You know, this is your future. You will feel this. Okay. The one side of this equation, the hate, makes them, and this is a later quote, think you want to get rid of each other and keep the hatred. Isn't that interesting? And that idea is central to this guidance. It's like you've got the hate, you've got the person, and you value the hate so much, you'd rather get rid of the person and keep the hate. What a statement. Because the hate's a choice. We don't have to keep it. So then, as I say in the commentary on this Cameo, you can kind of discern three phases in the relationship. They're all referred to directly in the guidance that the Cameo contains. The first phase, he doesn't say much about, just mentions it briefly, but it should be very familiar to us. The first phase is you try to downplay the amount of hate and fear. Jesus speaks of, quote, your previous attempts to minimize the fear. Doesn't mean actually shrink it. It means downplay it, right? So how many times have we been in relationships where there is a lot of hate and fear, but there's love there as well? It's an important relationship. And so what is the most natural thing to do? You don't feel able to let go of the hate and fear. So you just kind of downplay it, act like it's not really there. It occasionally erupts, okay? And then when those eruptions pass, you kind of go back to life as normal. You act like they didn't happen. We know this mode, right? Okay, then comes mode number 2. The love comes more to awareness, bringing the hate/fear into sharp relief as well. This is what's happened with Helen and Bill. They're in some kind of phase in which they're more in touch with the love, and that love also brings to consciousness the underlying hate and fear of each other. Okay, and now they're in this state of inner conflict because it's like, I love that person, but I hate that person. They're really aware of both. In phase number 1, they weren't truly aware of either one, right? They're downplaying the hate, but because phase 2 is defined by the love becoming more in awareness, which Jesus said, that suggests it was less in awareness in phase 1. So the love was less in awareness. The hate and fear were less in awareness. We were kind of sleepwalking. And so now the love comes up and the hate comes up. And it's like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable to feel those opposite emotions toward the same person.
Robert, would number 1 be strictly related to unawareness, or could it be suppression? Like you're aware of your hate and fear, but you're trying to minimize it by pretending everything's okay, but it's still in your conscious awareness.
Well, but if you suppress it to the degree you successfully suppress it, it's not in your conscious awareness.
Yeah, but it tends to geyser up. It flares up and then we push it down, and it comes up and we push it down. So
right, but there is some lack of conscious awareness of it. Right. Maybe you're not totally unaware of it, but there's, I think we know what it feels like. It's like, yeah, we love each other, yeah. But you kind of know that's not the whole picture. And then there are those moments where it really flares up. And then, like a day later, you act like it didn't happen.
mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. So both of those things can be applied to that first bucket where it's completely outside of your awareness, and then it's inside your awareness, but you minimize it as well.
Yeah, I think he's acting like, if you think of Helen and Bill, it wasn't completely outside their awareness, their hate and fear, but he's just saying they were downplaying it, you know, and that reduces awareness of it. Okay, so here's what he says about the second phase. Because your love has become more in awareness, the conflict between the love and the hate can no longer be settled by your previous attempts to minimize the fear. And that was phase one. The love makes attack untenable, but you still feel the fear. And the fear and attack and hate here are all virtually the same thing, because when you hate someone, you also fear that person and want to get away from them, right? It's hard to imagine hating someone without also fearing them. Okay, so the love makes attack untenable, but you're still feeling the desire to attack. Instead of trying to resolve this directly, to resolve it directly would be to get rid of the hate. Okay, if you have a conflict between two things, the best resolution is for one thing to go. Instead of trying to resolve it directly, you have a strong tendency to try to escape from the love. Yet this is the last thing you'd want to escape from. And even if you did, you can escape from everything else, but not from this. Be glad indeed there is no escape from salvation. So why would you want to escape from the love? I think I've been in this situation. We probably, well, most of us probably have, where you get back in touch with the love, and with that comes like a lot of investment, right? Suddenly you realize you really love, want to be with this person. That brings investment, and then that investment brings all the hate and fear up. So at this point, you think, if I just wasn't so invested, right, I wouldn't be feeling the hate and fear. I wouldn't be feeling absolutely torn between love and hate. So why didn't I just tamp down the love? Why didn't I get less invested? Why didn't I sort of detach, right? And then we can return to phase one. Have you been there? Jesus is saying that's not the solution. He's saying you don't want to escape from the love. In fact, you can't escape from love. Love is the nature of reality. Okay, love is salvation. Okay, so hopefully you're identifying with this. Okay. Did you want to add anything, Emily? See a smile on your face.
No.
Okay. Okay. Number 3, this is now the phase Jesus wants them to move into. And it's not the one we would pick. He says, look as calmly as you can upon your hatred. Now, let me just pause and say the thing that is probably in all of our minds, like, we don't want to admit we have hatred. Think back over all the course study groups you've been in. How often is the word hatred used? How often is hate used to describe what someone in that group believes they have inside them? Probably practically never, if not literally never. We course students don't have hatred, right? We attack just because we're afraid. We're not hateful. So the first thing to get over is just admitting we've got hatred. The Course is not shy about using that word. It occurs a lot in the Course. We just we gloss over it, okay? But it's there, and it plays an important role. Yes, fear and love are opposites, but in the Course, our fear is caused by our hate. So you wouldn't have the fear without hate. Okay, look as calmly as you can upon your hatred. For if we are to deny the denial of truth, and that's a reference to the previous section, the miracle the task of the miracle worker is to deny the denial of truth. We must first recognize what we are denying. Okay. So you can't deny something until you first recognize it. And the denial of truth basically is hate. So you can't deny the hate until you recognize it. That's just common sense. That's sort of psychology that everyone understands. Remember that knowledge precedes denial, that the separation was a descent from magnitude to littleness, and so the way back is to retrace the way to magnitude. That's a whole discussion, but what he's saying is we went from heaven down to the littleness of hate, and now we have to retrace that. We can't just like leave the hate aside and go straight to magnitude. We have to look at and deny the hatred. Then later on he says, your hatred is not real, but it is real to you. It hides what you really want. Surely you are willing to look upon what you do not want without fear, even if it frightens you, if you can thereby get rid of it. Now he said, look upon the hatred without fear, and that parallels look as calmly as you can upon it. And this addresses, I think, our issue. Why aren't we comfortable talking about our hate? Because our hate makes us incredibly uncomfortable, right? We don't want to look at it. We don't want to admit we have it. We don't want to admit to other course students we have it because they don't have it. So
we saw that yesterday with the struggle with the section. There was real difficulty in admitting that the attack comes first and then the fear.
Yeah.
I really felt that there wasn't full acceptance of it. And then there was the idea of, well, does it even matter? That's one thing, that's part of the feedback that I heard yesterday after the gathering is, well, what does it even matter? Which one comes first? But it does matter when you realize that your attack is first and your hate comes from that. Like it's just in us to attack. That's what the ego does.
Yeah.
And we don't want to look at that in ourselves.
And then if we don't, what happens is, first of all, we end up either living in dead relationships or getting rid of the person so we can keep the hate. And or we just think, I'm going to go to magnitude. I'm going to meditate my way up to God consciousness. And we achieve a certain amount of that goal. And our hate is lying there intact and leaking out and flaring up and causing all kinds of problems while we think we're enlightened.
Mm-hmm. This is how we end up with the dead bodies of relationships in the road, is because we get rid of the person, but we keep the hate and we make it about them and not about what we're not looking at within ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so his big point here is, let's look upon the hatred, but do so calmly. It's ultimately not real. We can look on it without fear. Even if we're afraid of the hatred, the act of looking, we can approach the act of looking without fear. Okay, he says, for you cannot escape salvation, and you will not escape fear until you want salvation. Be not afraid of this journey into fear, for it is not your destination. And we will walk through it in safety, for peace is not far, and you will be led in its light. Can't you see how conscious he is of how afraid we are of our hatred? He knows we don't want to do this, but he's reasoning with us and telling us it's the only way out of it. It's the only way to salvation. It's the only way to love. And it's okay. We can do this safely. You can look upon it calmly. Okay. I was hoping for more time for a discussion, but let's have some time now.
Well, Niles is asking, how does the situation described in this cameo relate to the concepts of special and holy relationship?
Well, Helen and Bill, according to the Course, and this we haven't gotten there yet, but starting in chapter 17, he says they were in a holy relationship, and And that began when they had that joining in saying, let's find a better way. So back in 1965, a year before this, they had begun their holy relationship. But a holy relationship is a relationship in which the purpose and the presence and the goal of holiness has entered. People are still on a journey to that goal. And so Helen and Bill were, you could say, in both. They were in a holy relationship because the goal of holiness had entered and was leading them towards that goal. And it was still a special relationship. I mean, you see it in this, the way we've been talking about it, right? You
And
love someone, but you hate them.
And one aspect of the special relationship is that the ego will always tell you to ditch the person that you're with because they're not meeting your needs and find someone else. And so once again, you get to get rid of the person, but keep the hate.
Right.
And take that into the next relationship.
Right. And I was just going to say, and fool yourself into thinking you aren't taking the next relationship.
Yeah. The reason why I was smiling at point two is because is this applicable? Because I think people can relate to this as well, where you love another person so much that your attachment to them frightens you. And so you seek to push them away, and that becomes an expression of hate, but it's really just fear because you love them.
Yeah, but it's hate too. Because they wouldn't be unsafe, thus requiring you to push them away unless you were finding something in them that was dangerous to you in your perception. And so it's hate too.
Mm-hmm. It all boils down to that, doesn't it? No matter how much we try and put lipstick on the pig.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, the Course has a similar image about painting rosy lips upon a skeleton.
Yeah, and John is saying bravely that he's had murderous thoughts, and the kindest, sweetest people that I have met and have had the same thing. And I know other students who are with us today have struggled with feeling at the effect of and the victim of thoughts that come into their mind that don't feel like them. And so I know that we've talked about this before, but do you have anything to add as it relates to this cameo?
About the
About
fact
that we have thoughts that are hate filled.
yeah,
Hate-filled
well,
thoughts that don't feel like us, that we feel at the effect of, and what do we do with them?
that's what the Course is for. And lesson 236, I rule my mind, which I alone must rule, really addresses this idea of thoughts that don't seem like they're ours. And ultimately, they both are ours and they aren't. We chose them. They wouldn't be in our mind unless we had put the power of our choice behind them. But we put the power of our choice behind the ego, and thereby its thoughts are what come into our mind and have been chosen by us. And yeah, those thoughts aren't really ours because they're not of us. They're not reflective of who we really are. So I think it's helpful to say, that's not me. Those are the ego's thoughts. But it's also helpful to say, and I'm in charge. I only have thoughts I choose, and I can take control and have different thoughts.
Okay, a couple more questions here. You don't have an exercise for today, right?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do.
All right. One question from Laurie. How to help people who are losing their mind, feeling like a victim to the world, or the way of the world?
Yeah, that's a big question. I've never figured that one out, really. So I'm not sure I should be the one answering that question. There is a way. I'm sure there's a way. And I don't want to fumble through my thoughts about what that way might be right now when we're out of time. But yeah, that's not so easy. So
Well,
I'm just going to basically dodge it.
I've heard you answer a question similar to that in the past, and you've spoken about the difference between their true nature is always perfect and sometimes in form. Now I'm fumbling my way through the answer. This isn't as easy as it looks.
Well, you know
But
what? We should go away and think about it, and then invite her to ask it again. Hope she never does, and it's solved.
but I think everyone gets the general idea. There is our true nature that is always perfect, and these bodies are very imperfect and they decay. I mean, the Course calls them rotting prisons.
Yeah,
And
but how do you help? But someone who says, I'm totally at the effect of the world, how do you help them in a loving way that doesn't get perceived to be unloving by them? Anyway,
well,
we're doing
the
the very
answer
thing I didn't want to do.
you, you see beyond the form to the truth in them. That's how you help them. Catherine is, you know that.
Yeah,
Catherine is,
but there's more to it. What do you say to them?
we'll go
Anyway,
away and think about it.
yeah.
Catherine
And
says,
we invite her to bring it up again at a later date.
or not. Catherine says, why isn't hate in the glossary of terms? And there's a few more questions. No, there's
Well,
not.
in the glossary at the end of the CE, it's like really key terms that the Course is putting a new or additional meaning into. And hate is just, it means in the Course what it normally means, right? The Course is, it's not like forgiveness where the Course is like radically redefining the word. Hate in the Course means hate.
Okay. One question from Chris. We'll do the exercise and then we'll close. Chris says, where does peace come from? Or when does the peace come?
When does the peace come? Oh, peace is not far. He's basically saying peace lies on the other side of letting go of your hate. That's what he's implying. We will walk through it in safety, for peace is not far. He's suggesting, let's just look at the hate and let it go, and peace is right there. It's not far.
And is hate, Jenny's asking, is it completely separate from fear, or is fear part of the hate?
He talks about them interchangeably in this guidance, but I think there is the understanding that's elsewhere in the Course that in the big picture, fear is the after effect of hate. And that's why the Course emphasizes that love and fear are opposites, because we think love and hate are opposites, and hate is strong and love is weak. What he's really saying is that when you hate, you think you're being strong, but you end up in fear. You end up living in fear. And that's why he contrasts love and fear, because ultimately love is strong and fear is the real nature. It's the eventual result of hating. Anyway, we should probably go on. Okay, so I've got an exercise here. Take a couple of minutes. You can close your eyes if you like. Choose someone you're in relationship with in which the relationship roughly fits the above description, the above discussion. So if someone was coming to mind in the discussion we just had, choose that person. Begin by seeing the genuine love that is there. Yet also see your attempts to downplay the hate and fear, to act like they're not there. Realize that somewhere inside you is the need to get rid of this person. Now decide to get rid of your hate instead. Hear Jesus say to you, look as calmly as you can upon your hatred. He continues, your hatred is not real, but it hides what you really want. Finally, he says, you don't really want it. And one more thing he says, surely you can look on something you don't really want without fear, if you can thereby get rid of it. Say to yourself then, I will look upon my hate as calmly as I can. Have a sense of looking upon it. You might even let a visual picture of it come to mind. Say to yourself, this is my hate of so-and-so. Say to yourself, I can look on it without fear, for I can thereby get rid of it. And I will to get rid of it. Finally, say to yourself, for hatred has no place in the holy mind of God's Son. Amen.
What a beautiful line, that hatred has no place in the holy mind of God's Son. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put that in the written exercise yet, but that's from somewhere in the course. And
A
I'm going to
good
pull
practice
that
line.
into the, yeah.
A really good practice line.
Before I send it to Danielle, I'll put that in there.
The course is an incredible path. It's one. I hope everyone's is struck as I am by how each lesson, every day we've been here, it feels independent, and yet they also all feel related at the same time. So I just marvel at it every single day. And thank you all so much for joining us here. It's a gift to be with you, and we will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert, for your idea, because it is hard. You can't just tell someone, oh, forgiveness to love. You know, it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you said, both you and Emily. And
wonderful. Yes.
Love you, Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Gracias.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
See you
you.
soon.